The idea of creating a unified BRICS currency has been discussed among member states for years. However, as the BRICS consortium expands and faces growing financial pressures, the conversation around establishing a joint currency has gained new momentum. At the recent BRICS Summit in Kazan, the official BRICS website shared several images showing a symbolic banknote being handed to Russia's president, who currently holds the BRICS chairmanship. These images have sparked speculation about the possibility of a consolidated BRICS currency, possibly a unique BRICS note, the adoption of a shared medium, or some other initiative aimed at reducing dependence on the US dollar as the world's primary reserve currency. The growing push within BRICS nations to establish a new payment system and currency has raised concerns in the United States. Such an initiative challenges the US dollar's decades-long dominance as the world's reserve currency, which has been a cornerstone of American economic power. The US sees the potential for a BRICS currency as a direct threat to its influence in global trade and finance. If successful, this new currency could diminish the dollar's role in international transactions, erode its status as a reserve asset, and weaken the US's ability to use its currency as a tool in enforcing sanctions or advancing foreign policy objectives. In response, former President Donald Trump issued a stark warning to BRICS countries. On November 30, 2024, he threatened to impose 100% tariffs on exports from any nation that supports or attempts to create a new BRICS currency. We require a commitment from these countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor support any alternative to the mighty US dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs and lose access to the invaluable US market, Trump declared. This aggressive stance underscores the US's deep concern over the geopolitical implications of dollarization. A successful BRICS currency could shift global economic power away from the United States, creating a more fragmented financial landscape where Washington's influence is significantly weakened. However, these threats may inadvertently accelerate the BRICS nations' push for greater financial independence, potentially reshaping the global economic order in ways that challenge American supremacy. To fully understand the potential impact of a BRICS currency, it is crucial to grasp the motivations behind this initiative. Both financial and political factors are driving BRICS countries to seek alternatives to the dollar. These nations aim to insulate themselves from dollar-driven economic uncertainties, enhance regional trade relations, and assert greater control over their monetary policies in a more diversified global economy. The US dollar's status as the world's primary reserve currency traces back to key decisions made during the 1944 Bretton Woods Conference. Representatives from 44 allied nations met to design a stable post-war international monetary system, resulting in the creation of institutions such as the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, IBRD, now part of the World Bank. A central feature of the Bretton Woods system was the establishment of fixed exchange rates, with currencies pegged to the US dollar, which was convertible to gold at $35 per ounce. This framework effectively positioned the dollar as the world's primary reserve currency, facilitating international trade and investment. The US dollar's dominance was further solidified in the 1950s by the United States' strong economy and substantial gold reserves. By 1958, the Bretton Woods system was fully operational, allowing nations to settle overseas transactions in dollars. However, by the 1960s, rising US deficits and gold drainage weakened the system, and in 1971, President Richard Nixon ended the dollar's convertibility to gold, ushering in the era of floating fiat currencies. Despite these adjustments, global reliance on the dollar persisted, bolstered by its entrenched use in international trade and finance. In recent years, however, Shifting geopolitics and economic strategies have prompted BRICS nations to consider alternatives. These countries are seeking to establish a currency system that enhances trade efficiency, reduces reliance on the dollar, and allows them to better navigate a rapidly changing global economic landscape. In recent years, the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, have seen a significant increase in their global economic influence. As of 2023, the BRICS economies collectively accounted for approximately 32% of the world's GDP when measured by purchasing power parity, PPP, surpassing the combined share of the G7 countries, which stood at 30%, with projections indicating that BRICS's share could rise to 45% by 2040. The group's growing prominence is reshaping global trade dynamics. Beyond economic size, BRICS countries also represent about 41% of the global population, providing a vast and diverse human resource base. This demographic weight, coupled with their expanding economic footprint, has strengthened their collective voice in international trade and finance, creating both opportunities and challenges for the West. Amid a backdrop of sanctions and trade imbalances, especially with regard to Russia and China, BRICS has increasingly looked to reduce its dependence on the US dollar. This move is often referred to as de-dollarization and has been at the forefront of BRICS economic strategy. A notable example of BRICS's push for de-dollarization is the agreement between China and Brazil to conduct trade directly in their own currencies, the Chinese yuan and the Brazilian real, bypassing the US dollar entirely. This initiative aims to reduce transaction costs, mitigate currency exchange risks, and streamline trade between the two nations. In August 2023, the first transaction under this agreement took place, involving the export of pulp from Brazil to China. This deal was settled and financed in yuan, which was then converted into Brazilian reals, marking a significant shift away from dollar-based trade. This is part of a broader trend where BRICS members are engaging in similar bilateral agreements to conduct trade in local currencies. For example, China and Russia, Brazil and China, and India and Russia have all initiated transactions using their own national currencies, reducing reliance on the dollar and fostering stronger economic ties within. As the momentum towards de-dollarization builds, there is increasing speculation about the creation of a unified BRICS currency. Such a currency could potentially streamline cross-border exchanges, enhance economic autonomy, and align with the growing trend of dollarization among BRICS nations. This currency could take the form of a traditional physical unit or a digital currency, proportionally linked to the economic size of each member nation, similar to the International Monetary Fund's special drawing rights, SDRs. The debate around the potential backing of this BRICS currency by gold is particularly heated. Advocates argue that a gold-backed currency would offer stability and trust, reducing the reliance on fiat currencies like the US dollar. By anchoring the currency to gold, proponents believe BRICS could mitigate inflationary risks, increase investor confidence, and offer a hedge against currency volatility, especially important for emerging economies. However, critics of a gold-backed currency highlight its potential limitations. Tying a currency to gold reserves could restrict the flexibility needed to address economic shocks or fluctuating trade balances. Furthermore, if gold prices were to experience significant volatility on global markets, it could introduce new risks. An alternative proposal suggests a diversified asset-backed currency, incorporating a basket of commodities or even the national currencies of BRICS members. This approach would offer greater adaptability while still providing a stable foundation. Some voices also argue for a completely unpegged, freely floating currency that would allow BRICS nations to independently adjust their monetary policies based on local economic conditions. While such a model would provide greater flexibility, it would also introduce new challenges in terms of stability and coordination across such diverse economies. BRICS' quest for economic independence is deeply tied to a broader desire to reduce reliance on Western-dominated financial systems. This includes institutions like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank, which are heavily influenced by the US and other Western powers. The BRICS nations believe these institutions often reflect Western priorities and have been used to impose sanctions and economic penalties that disproportionately affect their members. The sanctions imposed on Russia, including its exclusion from the SWIFT payment system following the Ukraine crisis, serve as a vivid reminder of the vulnerabilities faced by non-Western economies reliant on dollar-based global institutions. In response, BRICS nations are actively working to bolster their autonomy by encouraging local currency use in trade, exploring the creation of a shared BRICS currency, and establishing alternative financial systems outside the US-dominated framework. By streamlining intra-BRICS trade with local currencies or a unified BRICS currency, the group seeks to reduce the costs and risks associated with currency exchange. This also provides a pathway to mitigate the impact of potential future sanctions and allows BRICS countries to conduct business on their own terms. The BRICS nations are no longer merely passive participants in the global economic order. Their collective economic power, demographic weight, and strategic initiatives are challenging the established norms of international trade and finance. While the idea of a unified BRICS currency remains uncertain, the momentum towards greater economic independence and de-dollarization is clear. As the world shifts towards a more multipolar economic landscape, the BRICS countries are positioning themselves as key players in reshaping the future of global trade and finance. Whether through local currency agreements, digital currencies, or a new unified economic framework, BRICS is determined to enhance its role in the global economy and reduce its dependence on dollar-centric institutions. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are exploring ways to simplify trade, enhance economic integration, and reduce vulnerability to global currency fluctuations, especially as intra-BRICS trade continues to grow. One key aspect of this transformation is reducing reliance on the US dollar, a shift that could streamline trade processes, reduce transaction costs, and enhance financial stability. The practical benefits of dollar-free trade are already visible in several bilateral agreements. For example, China and Russia, as well as India and Russia, have increasingly settled trade in their respective local currencies. These arrangements have helped lower transaction fees, mitigate the impact of exchange rate fluctuations, and speed up the settlement of deals. In particular, Russia and China have been conducting energy and commodity exchanges in yuan and rubles, reducing their dependence on the US dollar, especially amid growing geopolitical tensions. Similarly, India has begun exploring trade in rupees with Russia, facilitating the import of oil and other goods without the need for dollar-based transactions. A unified BRICS currency, if realized, could further streamline intra-bloc trade by offering a single medium of exchange that reflects the collective economic priorities of its member states. This could also provide an alternative to the dollar-dominated financial systems, reducing exposure to global sanctions and external economic disruptions. However, such a shift would not be without challenges. Transitioning to a common currency or expanding the use of local currencies within the BRICS would require the establishment of robust financial infrastructure, strong trust among member nations, and mechanisms to address potential trade imbalances. Still, Advocates argue that these changes could foster a more balanced global financial order, counteracting the dominance of the US dollar and providing emerging economies with a stronger voice in global economic affairs. The growing divergence between the US and certain BRICS nations, particularly Russia and China, has accelerated efforts to diversify away from the dollar. As geopolitical tensions rise, the shift is seen as a safeguard against future sanctions or trade restrictions imposed by the US and its allies, with additional countries like Saudi Arabia, Iran, and others expressing interest in joining BRICS. This shift is likely to continue reducing the global influence of Western-dominated institutions like the IMF and World Bank, while minimizing the volatility tied to dollar-based financial systems. Emerging markets within BRICS argue that over-reliance on the US dollar leaves them vulnerable to fluctuations in US economic policy, such as Federal Reserve interest rate changes. When US interest rates rise, for example, BRICS countries often face higher debt costs and inflationary pressures. Reducing dollar dependence could, therefore, provide more financial stability for these economies. The BRICS commemorative banknote. In a symbolic gesture of unity and the evolving economic landscape, BRICS has also introduced a commemorative banknote. Ahead of the 2023 BRICS Summit in Johannesburg, 1,000 commemorative 100 BRICS banknotes were printed in Kirak, Russia. During a summit in Kazan, President Vladimir Putin received one of these bills, which Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov described as quasi-money, a symbol of BRICS cooperation rather than actual currency. The design of the note reflects the unity of the BRICS nations, showcasing the emblems and flags of the founding members, Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa on one side, and the flags and names of BRICS partners like Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran and the UAE on the other. Each element of the design, created by Yevhen Fyodorov, head of Kirak Typography JSC, emphasizes the principles of equal standing and multinational cooperation, which BRICS champions. Fyodorov noted that the circular arrangement of flags represents the equal status of all member countries. The note also includes advanced security features, drawing inspiration from Russia's official currency designs, and was created with artistic input from renowned designer Yuri Yakov, who has worked on currency designs for over 10 countries. Although the idea of a shared BRICS currency is still in discussion, President Putin has clarified that there are no immediate plans for implementation. Any move toward a unified currency would require careful consideration and preparation. The BRICS nations are focused on fostering deeper cooperation, but are mindful of the complexities involved in such a significant economic transition. In conclusion, the BRICS bloc's efforts to reduce dollar dependence, coupled with initiatives like the commemorative banknote, highlight the group's commitment to reshaping the global financial system. While the path forward remains cautious, the shift toward a multipolar financial world could mark a pivotal moment in global economic history.